Good evening. We would like to welcome you to our webinar on the student academic experience, the latest in our ongoing series of webinars on Loyola's vision for the spring 2021 semester. My name is Robin Mallett, and I am Loyola's Associate Provost for Academic Programs and Planning, as well as an Associate Professor of Psychology. And I'm delighted to join you as moderator of tonight's webinar. As a first-generation college student, higher education has always been important to me. I know firsthand how critical the student academic experience is to your success. When I was a student, I was fortunate to find mentors who inspired me in the classroom, introduced me to research, and encouraged me to pursue graduate education. Without their support, I doubt I would have found my current path, and I definitely would not be coordinating academics at Loyola. Here's a fun fact. Two of the faculty members that had the biggest impact on my formation earned their PhDs right here at Loyola. In some ways, it felt like I was coming home when I joined the psychology department faculty in 2007. As a faculty member, I try to demonstrate the same care and dedication to students that I learned from my mentors. As a member of the administration, I constantly remind myself what it was like to find my path as a first-generation college student from a small town in Alaska. I'm grateful to be surrounded by colleagues who are dedicated to supporting our students through this challenging time. And I'm inspired by our students who have demonstrated such resilience in the face of everything they've encountered in 2020. In the interest of protecting the health and safety of our community, Loyola is continuing a phased approach to reopening our campus, which this semester will include an increased number of classes being offered in person. This is our 5th webinar in a series preparing the Loyola community for the next phase of our campus reopening. We provided a general overview of our vision for the spring in the first webinar before Thanksgiving, followed by a discussion of our plans for ensuring the health and wellness of our community at the beginning of December. We have also hosted webinars specifically for faculty and for students who will reside on campus this spring. This webinar will be posted in the coming days along with the previous webinars on our Return to Campus website. Tonight, we'll take a closer look at the student academic experience. While this information is primarily geared towards students, we know this information will be relevant to all of you who have joined us this evening. In tonight's webinar, we'll hear from students, both undergraduate and graduate, who have taken classes in person and online this fall. One of our faculty members will share her story of successfully converting a course normally taught in the classroom to a virtual format. And members of our staff will discuss what spring courses will look like, how students can participate in experiential learning opportunities, and what types of support structures are in place to ensure our students' academic success. Our panelists tonight include Susan Reese, Associate Dean, Quinlan School of Business, John Gernak, Director, Office of Online Learning, Betsy Burns, Director of Learning and Student Success, Patrick Green, Executive Director of the Center for Experiential Learning, Heather Sevner, Assistant Dean, the Graduate School, Eve Jeroulis, Executive Lecturer and Master of Science and Marketing Program Director in the Quinlan School of Business, Josh Kashat, a sophomore majoring in economics, and Cece Gazder, a second-year graduate student in the Parkinson School of Health Sciences and Public Health, getting her degree in medical laboratory science. As in our prior webinars, panelists will respond to questions selected from those you have submitted in advance. We also encourage you to submit questions in real time via the question and answer function. Some of these will be directed to one of our experts on the panel, and we also have several experts in the wings who will be responding via the Q&A. Our Q&A responders include experts on academic affairs, COVID testing, mental health services, and online learning. We expect that we will conclude the webinar shortly after 7 p.m. Our Q&A experts will remain online afterward to provide written replies to any remaining questions that come in. We thank you for joining us this evening. Our goal is that you walk away with your questions answered and a clear picture of what the academic experience for our students will be like during the spring semester. And now I would like to introduce our first panelist, Josh Kashat. Josh is a sophomore pursuing a major in economics in the College of Arts and Sciences with a minor in information systems in the Quinlan School of Business. And he will share with us his experience of online learning this fall.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction, Robin. So I'm here today to talk about my experience with online classes this semester, and also to share some concrete advice that all of you students joining can apply to your lifestyles next semester. I spent this past semester living a few blocks from campus, completing my credits completely online, like the majority of you. I also spent time working as a peer advisor and was able to observe the online learning adjustments for first-year students while navigating my own classes and activities. Before I begin, I want to touch on how lucky we all are to be learning during this unprecedented time. Even though it's difficult, there are many who would give anything to be studying for a college degree. That being said, while we depend on our administrators, professors, and parents to help us, we need to take ownership of our education and do everything we can to help ourselves succeed. We're all looking for a slice of normalcy during this time, and we need to create the best environment we can for ourselves to learn. So I want to give you a few pieces of advice that help me and other students I know get through this online curriculum while living in a disconnected lifestyle. My first piece of advice is to create a routine similar to your normal day. This can be seen as, making sure you wake up in ample time before class to get a meal in, making sure that you go outside and spend some time outside in nature. Or even a big thing for me was making sure that I was eating at normal times. You don't have to stick perfectly to the schedule, but by having one built on paper, on your laptop, or even just a little schedule built in your head, allows your mind to follow a routine, which for myself gives me a sense of comfort and direction. In addition, a schedule helps improve motivation and help me create goals for myself to strive for each week, month, and just for the semester as a whole. My second piece of advice is using the plethora of resources that is provided by the university. While online classes look a lot different, I think we've all come to understand that this does not mean that they're necessarily easier. It is easy to forget that there are many here at the university whose purpose is to aid us academically as well as emotionally. Some examples of these services are the Wellness Center, Success Coaches, the Writing Center, or even your academic advisor. Even if you're a person who feels like you may not need a lot of help, during this time, connecting with others who can help you may give you a whole new perspective. So, during this winter break, I encourage all of you students to reflect on areas where you could have used a helping hand this last semester. Then, go on Loyola's website or other resources and explore these programs and resources such as the Writing Center or the Tutoring Center, and pick at least maybe 1, 2, or 3 of these resources that you can go up next semester and try and apply to your curriculum or lifestyle at least one time. By setting a goal to try out some of these resources, it gives you an opportunity to maybe try something you haven't done before and maybe find someone who can give you a helping hand. And my third and final point is finding ways to interact with your professors and classmates. One thing that I found helped to connect with my professors on a more human level was at the beginning of the semester, I was able to go to all of their office hours. Because it wasn't a classroom setting and it was office hours, I was able to, see them in a more human light. And then when it came time to come learn the class, I felt less like a computer was talking to me and more like it was a person who really cares about my education that was talking to me. One way that really helped me and others connect with classmates is maybe by sending someone a kind or lighthearted message in a Zoom feature. I know for myself, one of my favorite parts of being in in-person classes was being able to meet a new peer by just, I don't know, going and sitting next to them. It doesn't have to be much, maybe a simple hello or comment on someone's poster in their Zoom background. One of these comments can set off a positive relationship with the classmate. And I understand that Zoom conversations can be inhibiting, but we must be willing to take these extra steps to foster relationships in an online classroom. These are just a few points that I've made that you can all take to apply to your own lives this next semester. I appreciate you all taking some time to listen to me this evening and want to remind each of you listening, whether it's students, parents, administrators, and even professors, that you all should be very proud of yourselves for the fortitude you've shown during this difficult time. I wish you all a very happy Christmas and holiday season and affirm that our best days are ahead of us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Josh, for sharing your online experience with us. Next, we'll hear from Susan Reese, who's an Associate Dean for the Quinlan School of Business and co-chair of the Academic Continuity Working Group under the university's Emergency Response Plan. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you to all our participants tonight. As Robin said, this is the 5th in a series of webinars that we've been hosting for students, faculty, and staff since about Thanksgiving, and we're grateful that you joined us. I do want to reiterate a little bit about the academic calendar for this coming spring semester. Most undergrad classes are starting on January 19th. Graduate students Calendars start at a variety of different times. Some might be the 4th, some might be the 11th. Please make sure you're checking with your school's academic calendar to make sure you know what day and date your classes are starting. For those of you who are in the undergraduate program and most graduate programs, we will be having a 2-week online start to the semester for most classes. There are a few, and I do mean a few classes, that will start in person. That list is available online and the link will be in the chat. All other classes are starting remotely for the first 2 weeks for the health and safety of all of our stakeholders, students, faculty, and staff. Another note about the spring semester is that we have canceled the traditional 1-week spring break to try to mitigate any distance traveling for folks. And because fall was such a long haul to get to the Thanksgiving weekend, we did put in a February break and a March break to go along with what we already typically have in April for our Easter break. So please refer to the academic calendar. And again, that link will be available in the chat. Make sure you understand what dates and days classes are meeting in various programs. Students, if you have any questions about your schedules, please refer to your academic advisor at any time. Give them a little bit of time to answer. Not everybody's available 24/7, and folks do take days off even in our remote setting. If you can't reach your academic advisor, your assistant and associate deans are posted on your school websites. So please refer to your school website if you have questions that need answering and you're not able to get a hold of your particular academic advisor. Most people really do try to get back to students within 1 to 2 days at the most. One of the questions that has come up is, will I have places to study on campus? Yes, there will be places to study on Lakeshore campus, Water Tower campus, and the Health Science campus. For example, on the Lakeshore campus, the IC and Damon Center will have study spaces, and there will be ways to reserve spaces in the IC soon, starting in January. Please refer to the Return to Campus website to get the most up-to-date details on how to reserve those spaces. At Water Tower campus, Corboy Law Center will have study spaces in both Lewis and the Law Library, and the Terry Student Center has some individual spaces on the 3rd floor. Schreiber Center will have the Great Stairs open for social distancing and additional spaces in the building. Arupe College will have spaces in McGuire Hall. So all 3 campuses at the Health Science campus, Cuneo IC has quiet study spaces. And again, I'm going to refer you to the Return to Campus website that all this information will be posted in January when we're approaching return to school. If there's any other questions, please put them in the Q&A, and those of us on the academic side of the house will be happy to answer them for you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Susan, for that information. I'd like to ask you a few questions which were submitted in advance by some of our attendees tonight. If those of you in the audience have additional questions, feel free to submit them through the Q&A function, and we'll do our best to answer them. So, Susan, first question for you. Will Loyola consider increasing the number of in-person classes during the semester as health concerns decrease?
Thank you, Robin. We will not. The class schedule has been set for all 3 campuses. Classes that are listed as on campus will actually be taught in a high flex mode, meaning there's flexibility for the faculty member to teach both the in-person students and those who are attending online. We will not be changing online classes to be appearing on campus once the semester starts.
Thank you. Second question for you. Why have course requirements and grading scales remain the same, even though most students are engaged in remote learning?
Faculty have academic freedom to set their own grading scale. We do not have a university grading scale. So for some faculty, a 90 might be an A-, and for other faculty, a 90 might be a B+. That's just an example. Faculty have been asked to modify assignments so that they make more sense in an in a online learning environment, and Eve Jaroulis is going to talk more about faculty perspective on how that's done. We have asked faculty to extend as much grace to students who are experiencing any difficulties, whether it's having internet access or challenges with online learning. But we do feel that our faculty are continuing to offer classes that are of essential importance to our students, and hoping that they're delivering deliverables that are graded and that students are, as Josh mentioned, putting in the time and effort to achieve the kind of grades that they did prior to the pandemic.
Great. Last question for you. Will students have places to gather and study on campus?
As I mentioned, all three campuses do have gathering space, and students will have to continue to follow all mitigation efforts, meaning that they need to be 6 feet apart and that they need to wear masks and they need to wash hands frequently. So while I'll use my own building, Schreiber Center, as an example. The Great Stairs will be open, but it's not, we do not expect students to be congregating in large groups there. You need to maintain your social distancing.
Thank you, Susan. Now we're going to learn a little bit more about how Loyola has prepared for online teaching and what the class experience will look like from our Director of the Office of Online Learning, John Gernack.
Thank you, Robin. Hi, everyone. I'm John Gernack. I'm the Director of Loyola's Office of Online Learning. The Office of Online Learning works with Loyola's academic units to both plan and develop the university's fully online programs. We also provide instructional design assistance to faculty to prepare them on how to both design and deliver online courses. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to take part in today's webinar. I'd like to begin by noting that online learning is not new to Loyola. I think that is very important to mention specifically for this audience. Loyola has been offering high quality online courses and programs for several decades. We currently have over 50 completely online certificate and degree programs at the university. And last year, our online bachelor's programs were ranked number 8 nationally by US News and World Report. In the upcoming spring semester, the majority of courses at Loyola will be offered online, using both synchronous and asynchronous instructional approaches. So synchronous means that the instruction is delivered in real time, at the time the course is scheduled, and that's typically done using Zoom. The majority of students have experienced synchronous instruction during fall semester. And as effective as synchronous learning can be, we know that it may feel draining or even exhausting at times. Zoom fatigue is real, and it is felt by both instructors and students. So to help combat Zoom fatigue during the spring semester, faculty are being asked to integrate more asynchronous offline learning activities into their weekly instruction. Now, asynchronous instruction means that some course learning activities will take place offline to allow students to complete their coursework more at their own pace. So examples of asynchronous instruction include listening to recorded video lectures and participating in written discussion forums. Now, asynchronous instruction can help alleviate or lessen Zoom fatigue. But that said, asynchronous instruction also requires good student time management skills. In undergraduate online courses, a mix of both synchronous and asynchronous instruction is considered the best practice. And the Office of Online Learning has been working closely with faculty this semester to help them to reimagine and restructure their online course activities to include both synchronous and asynchronous activities. Now, all on-campus courses at Loyola this spring will be delivered in what is called a HyFlex format. Now, HyFlex or hybrid flexible courses are delivered in person, synchronously online, and asynchronously online, all at the same time. So students get to decide how they will participate. So if you have a course scheduled to be on campus, each week you can decide to attend the class in person or join and participate in the class online via Zoom and using Sakai. So HighFlex gives students the flexibility to actively shape their course learning experience. Now, the Office of Online Learning, along with the Center for Experiential Learning, the Faculty Center for Ignatian Pedagogy, and Instructional Technology and Research Support, have created and delivered dozens of workshops and other resources for faculty to help them improve their course delivery and to build in better student engagement opportunities. We know that student engagement is the most critical component of the learning process, because when students feel connected to their instructors and other learners, they have the tools to be successful and their instruction feels more personal and relevant. So we have prepared hundreds of faculty, actually over 1,000, on the best practices for online and HighFlex teaching strategies. And at Loyola, we approach the online course development process very deliberately to ensure that students' learning outcomes are met, that sufficient student engagement occurs, and that students know how and where to get any assistance that they need. Our goal is always to create a learning environment where our students can be successful, one that is rooted in our Jesuit values and our core belief in the effectiveness of Ignatian pedagogy. This is what makes Loyola special, along with our world-class faculty, and they are the very same instructors that teach our students in both face-to-face and online courses. So in a few minutes, you're going to have the opportunity to hear from a faculty member that has participated in our professional development workshops. This should help you to better understand how instructors plan to deliver a course online or in a HighFlex format versus how they approach planning a standard face-to-face course.
Thanks, John. I appreciate you telling us a little bit more about some of the steps that faculty have already taken to make online classes more engaging. I have two questions for you that people have submitted. The first is, will students have a choice to take classes online, even if certain courses are being taught in person?
So the answer is yes. That's the biggest benefit of HighFlex courses, and it is why all on-campus courses during spring 2021 will be delivered as HighFlex. So students can decide how they will attend and participate. So they can decide weekly or even by individual class session, whether they want to attend in person or they want to join online. And all HighFlex courses will be recorded to allow students to review the full on-campus class session if they wish to.
That's great, thank you. So you mentioned the ability to get recordings for the HighFlex courses. Is it possible for students to get a recording of other online classes?
Yes, most asynchronous online courses already have pre-recorded lectures that students can review at any time, and those are posted to the Sakai course site. So similarly, HighFlex courses will also be recorded and posted to Sakai, and this will allow students to watch or re-watch a class session whenever necessary.
Great, thanks so much, John, for that information. Now that we've heard what the university has done to prepare, we'd like to welcome one of the faculty members who has taken these lessons to heart in crafting her online courses. I'd like to introduce Eve Drulis, an executive lecturer and director of the Master of Science and Marketing program for the Quinlan School of Business. Welcome, Eve.
Thank you, Robin. Good evening, everyone. This is a very personal 5 minutes for me because I speak to you as one of you. Loyola's been my intellectual home for 40 years. From the very first day I stepped on the Lakeshore campus back in the fall of 1980, also like Robin, a first generation undergraduate freshman. I could never have imagined how influential my education was going to be in fomenting the trajectory of my life. In much the same way that I don't know if we can all quite understand the sort of long-term consequences of the extraordinary human history that we're all living today. But this is a very personal expression for me. And if hindsight is 2020, what I anticipate taking over into 2021 is rooted in one overriding umbrella theme. And it's best encapsulated in a quote of President Eisenhower's at the height of World War II when he said that plans are worthless, but planning is everything. And like so many of my faculty colleagues, I spent the majority of my summer working with the extraordinary professionals that John just referenced across the university's online learning and Ignatian pedagogy, completely redesigning 2 decades of in-person syllabi that I teach at the Quinlan School of Business, where I'm responsible for the curriculum in global marketing and political marketing. So I understand that my particular classes lend themselves fairly effortlessly to, rooting them in current events and asking questions that are important to humanity and addressing the enormous challenges that our world now faces. But that was one of the overriding lessons that I took out of this transition from spring to summer to fall, and certainly will continue into spring of 21, making my classes as creative, as flexible, as accommodating to the realities that we're all facing. Because yes, Zoom fatigue is a real thing for me as much as for my students. And yes, as motivated and as dedicated as we all were to creating a synchronous classroom experience, several weeks in, I kept taking the temperature of my classes. And I asked my students to become active participants in their education. Just like Josh mentioned, you all need to be sort of self-advocating for the value proposition. You need to reach out to your instructors and professors. You need to engage in the dialogue that we create through the synchronous and asynchronous forum. I want my students to be co-conspirators in a way and co-creators in the value proposition. Universities in times of crisis serve very, very, very critical service because we think for the long term, we operate with less bias, and by design, we're there to help the communities that we serve. And in our origin, it isn't only about teaching the research or practical vocational skills that lead to economic growth, as essential as those are. And I'm in a school of business, I understand that intuitively. But it's as important to remind ourselves that by design, universities are supposed to invest time and curricula and attention that lead to a deeper, more meaningful appreciation of the meaning of life itself. And therein lies the core of what I tried, I suspect in some cases failed, but I think I did a fairly admirable job in engendering a relationship with my students to ask questions that are important, to use real world case studies, and to try and create a classroom environment that is often thought to be paradoxical by synthesizing and asking questions like, how does business affect art? How does capitalism affect democracy? More inward, more meta thinking, and asking my students to engage, but recognizing that I'm one of 4 or 5 classes, that I completely reassessed how I graded my students. The volume of information that I wove into my syllabi was reduced. So we went narrow and deep in less information, never compromising the pedagogical, philosophical foundations of the class. But there was a lot less of redundant assessments, a lot more of teaching the whole person, rooted in Aristotelian and Ignatian pedagogy, right? If we don't educate the heart and the spirit, as well as the mind, then it's no education at all. And so therein lies for me sort of the core of what I tried to do this semester. The world of tomorrow is not going to be one where value is derived from Adam Smith's pin factory or from literalists and order takers. Value today is not drawn from redundant skills. We create value not by following commands, right? We create value by encouraging all of you to be brave and bold thinkers and tinkerers and dreamers and pragmatists. And if we can encourage you to do that in your classrooms, raise your virtual hand in class. Talk to your professors during office hours. If there's a problem, if it isn't working, if you yourself are experiencing, difficulties, let us know as early as possible. And I promise you, we'll work with you. Because this is one of the last great opportunities you have in a classroom setting. Yes, it's suboptimal. Nobody wants to be doing this exclusively on Zoom, but this is one of the last great forums that you have to take chances, right? We can't stigmatize mistakes. We shouldn't, we won't. We need you to encourage you to be stakeholders and to engage. And if there's one final piece of advice that I hope you take out of this is the recognition that we need to infuse STEM curriculum with some steam. And arts and humanities are as vital. and that STEM needs to be squared, and we're teaching you, and that's what I tried in my class to do, that self-reflection and thoughtfulness, empathy and mindfulness are going to be just as important moving through and out of this pandemic. That's how you educate the whole person. That's what I hope I achieved by, reevaluating paradigms, working with the experts across the campus. So congratulations to all of you. Really, it was an extraordinary year. I wish you hope. I wish you happiness and health and the optimism a new year promises. Thank you.
Thanks, Eve. You mentioned some recommendations for students to maximize their online learning, but I'm wondering if you have any additional bits of information that you want to share.
Yeah, I think that a lot of what Josh said about creating schedules, right? And sort of, I know it's difficult and it's particularly acute now that we've got the weather and the darkness, but, establishing schedules is vital. Eating well, taking care of yourself, when you find yourselves as students, because I found myself just as a human being doing this quite a lot this term, right? Reading for pleasure, putting down the work, fueling your imaginations and your spirit as much as your academics, taking time for you, retooling, sleeping as much as you can. I think those, sort of life skills are going to be important in helping us rise out of this as we come out of it. But again, look to your faculty, talk to classmates, create virtual online forums to exchange ideas and best practices, with your contemporaries. I think that's also going to be a valuable tool moving forward.
That's a great example of what's possible in online learning. So thank you, Eve, for sharing. Up next, we'd like to cover the ways that students can participate remotely in experiential learning opportunities and virtual internships. To explain more, I'd like to introduce Patrick Green, Loyola's Executive Director of the Center for Experiential Learning.
Thank you so much, Robin. I really appreciate that. And thank you to all of you that are able to join us for this webinar today. In the Center for Experiential Learning and on behalf of my team, we are so excited to support you through the process in connecting to forms of high impact learning as we work with students to connect to various forms of experiential learning. We work with faculty who teach a variety of engaged learning courses, and we work with community partners behind the scenes to create opportunities for students. So I want to provide a quick overview, and then I'm going to share a number of resources for you. First, I want to let you know that students are going to continue to have opportunities to engage in many different experiential learning opportunities, especially in participating in engaged learning courses. And many of you may be aware of the Engaged Learning University requirement, which is a 3-credit course requirement. And students are able to choose from 5 different designations of engaged learning courses. They include service learning courses, academic internship courses, undergraduate research, field work, and or public performance courses. And so many of these experiences will continue to be remote or virtual in the spring semester. Some of these experiences will be project-based rather than role-based. For example, a student may work with a nonprofit organization, but instead of serving as a volunteer, they may work remotely on a project for that community organization. If the student and the organization choose to engage through in-person meetings and in-person work, they may, as long as they follow the health guidelines of the organization. Most experiences, though, will be remote and virtual, depending on the experience, the priorities of the organization and the community with which the student is working, and the health scenario throughout the spring 2021 semester. There are a number of resources for students that we want to make you aware of. And so many of these resources are listed on the Center for Experiential Learning website. And the quickest way to get to that website is luc.edu/CEL for Center for Experiential Learning. We actually increased our resources for students even before the COVID-19 pandemic. So there are a number of resources that will really help students access service learning experiences, working with nonprofit organizations, academic internship experiences across sectors, and research experiences in the field. In collaboration with the Career Services Office, Students may access opportunities on Handshake, which is the university's online job and internship posting system. Students may also find a list of recommended nonprofit organizations on the Center for Experiential Learning website under Resources for Students. They may also sign up for the Opportunities newsletter, which is a newsletter that's sent out every 2 weeks for students featuring new internships, featuring new service learning opportunities and new research opportunities. Students may also access the Student Opportunity Research Center, which is an online database of research opportunities and fellowships for students from across the nation. During the second week of classes in January 2021, specifically on January 27th, we will be hosting the Nonprofit Opportunities Fair, and students can connect with some of Chicago's premier nonprofit organizations to find out about their service learning opportunities, their internship opportunities, and/or research opportunities. Students may visit the Center for Experiential Learning website to also specifically find resources on virtual academic internships. They'll be able to access a virtual academic internship guide or connect with resources such as Parker Dewey, a website dedicated to micro internships or virtual internships. We know that the opportunities are out there for students. As a matter of fact, we are often contacted by organizations as they're promoting internship opportunities for students. An example is the Art Institute of Chicago just reached out to us and shared 4 amazing internships that are all virtual and remote internships. Students would be able to apply to these internships, again, utilizing Handshake or checking out the resources on the Center for Experiential Learning website. But the opportunities are definitely out there. They may feel and look different. They may be virtual and remote, but they are definitely out there. There are numerous resources for students at your fingertips, again, on Handshake or the CEL website. And we highly recommend students work with our colleagues in career services to update your cover letter and resume and apply to these exciting opportunities. And with that, Robin, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thanks so much, Patrick. Next, we're going to turn to the issue of academic support for students at both the undergraduate and graduate levels. I'd like to welcome Betsy Burns, who is our Director of Learning and Student Success, and Heather Sevener, the Assistant Dean of the Graduate School.
Thank you, Robin. Again, my name is Betsy Burns, and I'm the Director of Learning and Student Success, whose mission is to foster student success utilizing a collaborative, student-centered approach to provide accessible learning environment through academic support and programming. In addition to student success initiatives, the Office of Learning and Student Success includes the Student Accessibility Center and the Tutoring Center. I kind of have 3 themes to talk to y'all about tonight. That's including collaboration, connection, and communication. And those 3 things I want you to think about as we're going through these points tonight and thinking about academic support in this new environment. We want to collaborate with students so that they can reach their academic and personal goals. And we do that in partnership with our faculty, the academic advisors, the libraries, and the Writing Center, to name a few. Some lessons learned from the fall in terms of academic support is that, again, we want to collaborate with students to support their success by offering our excellent tutoring opportunities and success coaching through the Tutoring Center and the Writing Center. This fall, we had over 13,000 tutoring visits. So our students are utilizing the resources, and we hope to continue to grow that in the spring as well. Our online course assistants will be again utilized to support faculty, both in the classroom and online. And we've incorporated those undergraduate online course assistants into our tutoring core and training so that we can expand our tutoring center offerings. We also are offering 5 sections of Univ 112, Strategies for Learning. Univ 112 is a 1-credit graded course that helps students assess their academic skills and become strong, effective learners in college. Students develop learning strategies, have the opportunity to reflect on their academic experience, including motivation, achievements, challenges, and create a plan for success. Success Coaching, which is one of our signature programs in the Tutoring Center, is built directly into the Univ 112 curriculum. So if you didn't reach your academic goals this far or this fall and want to start the spring off right, please enroll in Univ 112 Strategies for Learning. The Student Accessibility Center also encourages you to review your accommodations if you're one of our students with disabilities that has academic accommodations. Let's review those and let's see if we need to make some adjustments for the spring. Also, don't forget to renew your accommodations for the spring, and you'll be receiving communication on the renewal process in early January. Next is connections. We understand students struggle with connections this fall. In order to provide more opportunities for connections, we're going to continue to expand the functionality of Navigate, which is our student-centered mobile app that provides students with an easy and path to schedule an appointment, communicate with their advisor, as well as provide students with personalized information to keep them on track. We have added the financial wellness team along with the Center for Experiential Learning team to Navigate as well. So if you need to schedule an appointment with them, you can do that through Navigate too. This spring, we're excited to launch the Study Buddies module within Navigate. And that allows students the ability to connect with other students in their specific sections of their classes that are also looking to form study groups. In the testing that we did with this pilot group of Study Buddies, our students said it was very easy to utilize and thought it would be very helpful in terms of making those connections to other students in their course sections. Another way you can connect with others is through Univ 102. And we have a number of Univ 102, the Loyola Seminar courses offered this spring. Univ 102 is a 1-credit letter graded elective, and all of the sections will be taught online. Topics range in terms of career exploration for students who may be undecided in terms of majors, healthcare professions, financial wellness, and introduction to research. I'm going to give you a shameless plug for my course that I'm co-teaching with Ashley Williams, and we're co-teaching the Sophomore Cura Experience, which is open to sophomore students who identify as first generation, students of color, LGBTQIA, or students with disabilities who want to explore their individual academic journeys and have access to new opportunities as they strive for excellence in the classroom. We have a few spots left, so I hope you join us. Of course, for our transfer students, I'm always going to encourage you to take advantage of Univ 201, which is the transfer seminar, which again is a 1-credit graded seminar to help you with your transition into Loyola. Finally, in terms of communication, and based on feedback from our students, we have streamlined our channels of communications with our students with the creation of the Kettle website and corresponding newsletter. The Kettle empowers students to take the lead and build help-seeking skills through accessible campus resource links, newsletter, and student spotlights. Make sure you check out the newsletter, which will start arriving in your inbox the week before the spring semester starts, and will continue every 2 weeks thereafter. For any parents on the call, I know who you are. I'm one of them too. Have your students forward that Kettle newsletter to you in order for you to stay up to date on all the great offering and programs offered by Loyola this spring. We continue to add more resources to our resource rundown webpage. And for any of our new students who are joining us or families that are joining us for the webinar this evening that will be starting in the spring, I hope you check out our Rambler resources for student success, specifically our new Student Success online Sakai site. Sakai is our learning management system that our faculty use, and it'll allow you to check things out, even take a quiz, a practice quiz, so you know, and you can hit the ground running. I hope y'all saw the slide at the beginning of before the presentation started. The list of all of the resources that I just talked about were on that slide, and hopefully it'll run, I think, at the end of the presentation webinar as well, and you can take a quick pic of that slide so that you can have access to all of the websites that we talked about tonight. Thank you again, and I'm going to turn it over to Heather Sevener, the Assistant Dean of the Graduate School.
Thank you so much, Betsy. Thanks for having me this evening, everyone. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how graduate students might be approaching the spring semester. I want to acknowledge that for the majority of you, things are going to look very similar to the way that they did fall semester. Most of you will continue to have your coursework online, research, and even potentially teaching responsibilities that will happen online. And so you might be starting to feel or have felt for a while sort of isolated from campus. And so I want to talk strategically with you tonight about how you can make sure to stay connected to your program and to the university, even in this sort of virtual world. I think the first piece of that is something that has come up earlier this evening in Josh's remarks and Eve's remarks. It's critical to seek ongoing connection to your program. So make sure that you're setting aside a little bit of time every week to be in touch with your peers, with your faculty mentors, or even with programming that's happening in your department, so that you can stay engaged in their academic pursuits as well as in your own and stay connected. Also, this is an important time for you to think about advocating for yourself and strategizing for success in your work in light of the situation that's happening with COVID, right? So whereas your relationship with your advisor, with your faculty mentor might look very sort of loose, and when you bump into each other, you talk about things when you're normally on campus, under the current circumstances, you're not going to bump into each other, right? So you might need to think about adjusting how regular your meetings are, asking for them to help you set deadlines. This is an excellent time for you to get good at asking for what you need, and try to be specific. I think you'll find your faculty really want to help you, but they can't predict what kind of assistance that you're going to need under the current circumstances. Make sure also that you're keeping an eye out for your school's newsletter. So all of the graduate and professional schools have some version of a newsletter that goes out on a regular basis. And most of those are archived on their main website in case you're worried about missing things. So make sure that you're reading through those. Right now, those email communications are more important than ever, right? And so you want to make sure that you're looking very carefully at things, and don't hesitate to reach out and ask questions if something looks like it might be of interest or relevant to you and you're not totally sure. Also, every school and program is thinking about events for spring, ways to keep you engaged. Things I want to make sure to highlight. The graduate school has a couple of events coming up. The 3-minute thesis and the graduate research symposium that happen in spring semester are really exciting opportunities to see what your colleagues are up to in their research. It can be a nice reminder of what it feels like to be in an academic community, to attend those kinds of events, and to support your peers. Many schools are also hosting alumni panels or alumni discussions so that you can learn about what folks do when they leave Loyola with their educational experience as a graduate or professional student. Alumni events are one of the best ways you can see how meandering pathways as an academic or in your sort of thoughts about yourself as a person in the working world can turn out to be really exciting opportunities and professional lives. So I can't encourage you enough really to attend those. There are also some other writing retreats and chances to work in community with your peers. If you're the kind of person who really likes a more structured environment, the graduate school hosts a couple of writing retreats in the spring. But I've also started every Monday, starting in January from 9 to 10:30 in the morning, we'll do Work Along with Heather. So if you just want to come in and say good morning on a Monday morning and kick off your work week, you're always welcome to do that. But also, if you just have a friend who you know could also use a jumpstart and some accountability, this would be a great chance to set up a regularly scheduled time when you just both are working at the same time and your computers are on and your screens are on so you can see each other. And it's sort of akin to what you might experience if you have an opportunity to work in one of the shared campus learning spaces. This is also a great time to be on the lookout for open discussion sessions with your deans and faculty. There are frequently opportunities like this webinar, but also more directly engaged opportunities for conversation with your deans right now. Because we're in this environment where everyone is trying to connect with you and make sure that the university is serving you in the best way possible, there are more of those opportunities now than there ever have been before. So make sure you're keeping an eye out for those. Finally, I do want to encourage you to remember a couple of really key resources for you as a graduate student on campus that you should be taking advantage of. First one is I want to second what Betsy was saying about the Student Accessibility Center. You may be encountering a different set of needs as a student in a virtual classroom than you would under other circumstances. Make sure that you're not expecting yourself to operate without an adjustment to your accommodations if that's something that needs to happen. So I definitely encourage you to be in touch with the Student Accessibility Center if you have any adjustments that need to be made. Also, a reminder that the library continues to be working incredibly hard to give you access to Loyola's vast resources at this time. There was in the pre-roll tonight a slide of information about library resources. If you have an opportunity after this evening to go back and grab that slide and take a look at things, I definitely encourage that. Or you can always chat online with a reference librarian on their website, which I think is just a really great service that students should take advantage of. Last sort of message for this evening, I want to encourage you right now to acknowledge and sort of take in the idea that the university, their staff and faculty and your peers are all slightly more open to learning about what you need and supporting you at this time, right? Everyone, that's all we're thinking about right now is how do we make sure that students feel welcome and engaged in the university, even when we can't all be in the same place. So take that message and make sure that you're engaging in everything that the university has to offer you as a graduate or professional student at this time. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Robin.
Thanks so much, Heather and Betsy. I have a couple of questions that came in for you. The first question is, who should students contact if they have questions about courses or opportunities? How do they access support from advisors?
Great question. Our undergraduate students can schedule appointments directly with their advisor via Navigate. Many of the schools, college, first and second year advising also have drop-in or express advising that students can take advantage of, and all of that information is found on your school's website. If students have questions about work, opportunities, internships, job opportunities, they can access all of those opportunities through Handshake. And you can make, students can make an appointment directly with our career services staff through Handshake. And I would also encourage students to take advantage of all of the Center for Experiential Learning resources as well. And students can make appointments directly with our CEL staff as well through Navigate this semester. So Navigate, Handshake, places to go, places to be, schedule those appointments.
Thank you, Betsy. Second question for you. Some students felt disconnected last semester. How can professors help students feel more connected in the spring?
Absolutely. Well, all faculty offer weekly office hours at least once a week, if not multiple times a week. And oftentimes, if they're having synchronous sessions, they arrive to class early, they stay on Zoom late so that students have the opportunity to ask questions during that time as well. And of course, if those times don't work, you can always email the faculty member directly, and they would love to have the opportunity to schedule a time that works with the student as well. Like I said before, faculty utilize our learning management system, Sakai, but some also utilize Microsoft Teams as ways to engage and connect both with the students, but also to connect the students together to work on projects and those sorts of things. And then, of course, with all of the great resources that John talked about that have been offered through the Office of Online Learning, they have all kinds of strategies to engage students in discussions, both synchronously via Zoom, via breakout rooms, but also asynchronously through Sakai and forums and voice threads and all kinds of fun things that they have up their sleeves to engage our students in the spring. And again, we're going to encourage our faculty to promote the Study Buddies module through Navigate. Our pilot group of students that utilized it this fall talked about how it's really important for our faculty to share that resource directly with their students and encourage them to take advantage of that. So we're going to make sure all faculty have information to share with their classes to introduce this Study Buddies module in Navigate and walk them through the process. And we're going to reinforce those messages and opportunities with our online course assistants and our tutors.
Great, thank you so much. I appreciate it. So our final panelist this evening is Cece Gaster. She's in her second year as a graduate student pursuing a degree in medical laboratory science and is the co-chair of the Graduate Professional and Adult Council. Cece will speak to us tonight about her experience of studying on campus this fall.
Thank you so much, Robin, for that introduction. And hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm going to speak to you guys a little bit about my experience with my in-person learning during this pandemic. I've had the unique opportunity of having a hybrid learning experience where part of my learning is online, but the majority is in person. And I believe this has everything to do with the unique nature of my program. Some background about medical laboratory science is that this is a 2-year degree where the first year is all lectures and then the second year is all clinical based. So this past fall, I was at Loyola University Medical Center for my clinical rotations, but all my exams were online as well as all my assignments, as they don't need to be in person. So while my education has been for the most part in person, and I've had the luxury of leaving my home and not being cooped up inside, there has been some challenges, obviously. I mean, there's been adjustments to the screening process that we need to go through in order to go onto the campus. Then there's been strict rules about where we can and cannot eat, where we can and cannot study. And just keeping in mind that Loyola University's Medical Center is a level 1 trauma center, and we're going to that hospital where there's a lot of sick patients. So just being mindful that this is an environment where we need to keep ourselves safe and our peers safe. So I think it's a different adjustment to that carefree attitude we kind of had a year ago when we were entering the Maywood campus. So that's just been something that we've all had to adjust to. But in an effort to keep students and even employees safe, Loyola has employed a screening process. So earlier in the fall, they had staff take our temperature when we got to the hospital with those temperature guns. But now they've kind of mainstreamed it a little bit to where a text gets sent out to everybody's phone that has enrolled in the screening process. And it provides a link to the survey where we're asked questions like, do we have a fever? Do we have any symptoms? And most recently, they've added a question about whether or not we've received the vaccine. So once we answer those questions, stating that we're healthy, we don't have a fever and we don't have any symptoms, we're provided this QR code that we're then prompted to scan on this iPad that's on like the entrance of the hospital. And it takes our name from the QR code. The iPads have facial recognition to make sure that we're wearing a mask, and it takes our temperature. And once we pass that, we're then allowed to enter the hospital. If we don't pass that, we are immediately sent home, and there's security checking that we screen ourselves. It's important that students get there early, just because, especially because it's a hospital and there's employees also trying to get to work. Those lines, those iPads can get pretty long just because it takes a little bit to screen yourself in. So making sure that we're organized, we're staying on top of things, and we're getting there early is important due to the screening process. And while my clinical rotations have been in person for the most part, I'll speak a little bit to my assignments online and the exams that are online. I do want to reiterate what everybody has said about like staying organized. the importance of having a schedule. I personally have a calendar on my phone, reminders on my watch, a printed out version of my schedule, and a planner. So that's probably like overkill, but I can't tell you how much it saved me. And just that organization has helped me build in time to just like take care of myself, FaceTime with friends and family, and also create time where I can email my professors, even if it's something to just say hi, like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while, because they're not on campus while we're doing our clinical rotations. I think that connection is going to help, especially when we are applying to jobs and need a letter of recommendation later. So making sure that you're just like chatting with your professor and attending their office hours when they hold it is really important. And then definitely like scheduling time to take care of yourself is also something that you need to do during this break. And then studying at home can definitely be a challenge. I know that the distractions of studying at home, it's a non-traditional study environment, making sure that you have the tools to kind of simulate something that's going to help shut out all those distractions. So I'm not saying that students need to go out and purchase any additional items, but for me, I purchased a whiteboard because I know that like in the library, when I'd go find those individual study rooms, I whiteboarded everything. So having that at home was like a big help of keeping me at home and like not having me miss that on-campus study session as much. And then also having like noise canceling earplugs. If you have roommates or a noisy family, and you can't tell them to be quiet all the time, and you know, noise happens. So just creating that like quiet bubble is going to be really helpful. And also making sure that if you're studying at a desk or in a certain space, you only study. Try to compartmentalize, like don't be on your phone when you're at your desk. Don't watch TV or eat at your desk. Like make sure that that space is only used for studying. I feel like that kind of helps to, especially if you're cooped up in the house, makes your brain kind of switch into this gear of like, hey, we're here to study. We're here to get some work done. Those are my tips for anyone like at home trying to get some work done, and some future tips about like, hey, this is what it's like when you go out onto campus. But overall, if we return back to campus, I just want everybody to remember that like, be mindful of each other, continue to be safe, continue to social distance. There are still people being affected by COVID-19, and we're very privileged to have a university that's looking out for us, looking out for our learning experience, our health, and trying to be accommodating. And thanks so much for your time, guys.
Thank you, Cece. I'd also like to thank all of our panelists for sharing their insights and personal experiences with us tonight. And I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to join us. We hope that you found this webinar to be informative and encouraging as we prepare to enter the spring semester. We also hope that we have successfully answered many of your questions about what the academic experience will look like. As I mentioned earlier, this event has been recorded and will be posted in the next few days on our Return to Campus website, and we will share the link by email. Please also continue to check our site and our FAQ page for updated information about the spring semester. Please join us for our next webinar, which focuses on the student experience beyond the classroom on January 10th. Until then, we thank you for joining us and wish you a happy holiday season.